Hello, everyone, and welcome to our regular podcast on compressed air. My name is Elvira, and I'm super happy to have today Dani from Silvent. Hi, Dani, how are you?
I'm great, excited to be here. Happy to see you.
Yeah, so it's finally we found the time to record this wonderful podcast. Probably people from compressed air really know you as like Dani from Silvent because you're so active on your LinkedIn and you talk a lot about the safety and you give such a huge contribution to our compressed air experts community. So don't forget to follow Dani from Silvent on LinkedIn. And today I would like just to talk with you about your experience with compressed air. I mean, how did you start? So what are you doing now, and what is your focus? What is your vision?
So, how I started, I've been with Silvent for almost 10 years now. So,
Mm.
December 2024 will be 10 years. It has not felt like that long, which is good, I guess. But I love it. I love the work that I do. It's so many amazing people. So I didn't plan to fall into the safety side of compressed air. It kind of just happened. When I first started working, I was responsible for like the northeast part of America, the US. So there happens to be a lot of aerospace companies, a lot of headquarters for like Pratt and Whitney, places like that. And a lot of their main focus is happened to be safety when I started. So that's kind of how I ended up in that sector of the compressed air. Of course, everybody's trying always to be green and be more energy efficient and conscious. Um, but we do that with a lot of the nozzles and inside the machines. But what I notice is there's a lot more air blow guns than air knives in a lot of, especially in aerospace manufacturing. There's a lot of blowguns. So if you have CNC machines, I mean, they're hanging on every machine in every workspace. So while I still do some energy projects and, energy efficiency there, there's just so many more like humans holding an air gun and being exposed to so many different hazards with, using that tool. So that's kind of how I ended up there. But I like it. It's so many good people. The safety managers I get to work with are great. But I also get to work with, safety engineers who are trying to engineer out a lot of the hazards that we deal with. And I get to work a lot with the maintenance managers as well because the everything has to work. So yes, we're trying to reduce noise, we're trying to reduce energy, but if it doesn't work, I mean, they're not going to use it. So I kind of work with a wide range of people, but most of my projects start with safety.
So basically, you work with all the applications where operators are exposed to the source of the compressed air, not to the source, but like to the compressed air. And when we talk about the safety in compressed air industry in pneumatics, it's broad. Like you have all the actuators. There is also a lot of things that are going on. You have the compressors, but you are actually on the closest point where the operator is using this. So it's like I think it's the most important and the most exposed, right? So what is in general now is the situation on the market? How people in industry, how people react to this? Do they really invest a lot? I mean, time wise and money wise into this, or there is lack of awareness? Like what's going on?
I think it's a mix, and it really depends who you're talking to. So, like I said, some of the larger companies that have specific, like IH people, like specifically focused on ergonomics and noise, and like people that have general safety teams, they have a lot more people that can focus on those kind of issues. If we're looking at some medium-sized plants that maybe the safety manager is also the facilities manager and maybe the maintenance manager is also the safety contact at that location. I mean, they're not going to have time, and really no one's thinking about air guns ever. Like it's not on anybody's to-do list. unless they have a consultant come in and say, hey, these air guns are really loud, or if they had an eye injury, say they were blowing something off and one of the operators got hurt, then it becomes an issue. So prior to there being some kind of safety concern, I mean, nobody's thinking about it. Like it's not
So
anything.
noise level is basically it has to be loud and it's okay, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, people think they're making it's manufacturing, it's going to be loud. That's automatically what they think. There's no way to fix it or update it. Like it is what it is technically. Is a lot of the thinking. They don't think it can change. It's been like that for probably as long as they've been doing business.
Mm-hmm.
So so they don't think about it. They're just like, yeah, it's a paper mill, it's gonna be loud, or it's a stamping machine, it's gonna be loud, and we just have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I need to bring a lot of awareness to people that it doesn't have to be that. Of course, we're only dealing with the compressed air side. So if you do have a stamping machine, for example, we're not gonna be able to reduce that noise. However, there are so many places where the compressed air is the main source of the noise. Um, for example, if you have a lot of CNC machines, once the doors get closed, the noise is kind of contained in there. But the operators have to open the door and blow the piece off. So then they're exposed to that loud noise. So it's not really something people think about, or they just think it has to be that loud.
It's always
So
been this way, and that's okay, right? So this is something that we face in our industry. I mean, you do a lot of awareness online, and your posts are really, really helpful to understand many aspects. I want to talk about the procedure. Like, okay, people are not aware about this, but it's really so difficult to do all the assessments, to do the audits, to replace open pipes, like open tubes, by blowing guns. What are the steps usually included there, and how it make it easier for customer?
mhm. So I try to make it as easy as I can for them because it's not normally something they look to do anyway. So what I try to do is, luckily I've been doing this long enough now that I've seen a lot of use cases. Like I've seen so many different types of manufacturing in almost every industry. So I have, that knowledge and that experience. So I can technically look at a gun and know exactly if I have been able to reduce noise, been able to do it somewhere else. So I can kind of like, hey, send me a picture or part number of what you're using, and I can quickly make some recommendations there. But of course, that comes with being in all the different plants and doing it for so long. So I try to make it very quick, very simple. Take a picture, send it. Um, Most of the time, you can use the same gun throughout the manufacturing facility. And most time places are. They just buy whatever gun came on the machine and that's what they use. But there are some plants where it's a little more involved, where they have so many different machines and applications that maybe they need something longer, something shorter. And in that case, we would actually do a customer visit, because I'm not going to ask them to be the expert in something that, they're not. So, that's when we come in as Silvent and come in and do the customer visit, make recommendations. They can test some things out, make sure it works for them, and then we can kind of work that way. So for the air guns, at least, it doesn't have to be a long process. As far as nozzles, air knives in the machine, I mean, they obviously have to shut the machine off to get in there and, retrofit and install, the product. So that would be on their end. I
Mm-hmm.
will say one of the biggest things I run into when it comes to, so it doesn't take long to choose a gun, do the noise test, because a gun, you plug it in and it works or it doesn't, and it gives you the noise levels or it doesn't. So that assessment's very, very quick. What takes longer and what I find is kind of like what's bottlenecking the projects is, I'm not picking on maintenance people, but they're busy. I mean, they're putting
Of
out
course.
fires
Yeah.
everywhere. So for them to go around and unplug and install or shut down a machine to install just air knife, that's typically where like what holds up the project is the install process. But there are like I've had people ask me if I like Silvent comes in and installs all the guns. Unfortunately, we do not. But I mean, there are so many companies and contractors that do come in and do that kind of work. So it would have to be probably outsourced in that case.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that that's probably the biggest concern that I hear from customers in general. It doesn't have to be the safety manager. It's like, hey, implementation is gonna like they already have a long list of things they're waiting on, to get
Yeah.
going, like, and then doing this project. And like I said, almost every operator has an air gun. So if you have 1,000 employees, I mean, that's gonna take some time to go around and do that or change it out.
How
So that
usually
would be for
operators react on this? I mean, like, because I know that you are very people oriented, and I think it's so important. Like, I'm more technical oriented. I look like at the, like parameters, like forces, like pressure, and just like this is like it has to be like done like this way. But you try to you do make the workplace of people more comfortable for them, and I think this is really so important. But I feel sometimes, like operators, they just don't like to use something. As being auditor myself, I would go on the factory and I would see that there were some nozzles installed, but they were like cut off.
Yes. Yes, that is probably once the air guns get installed, that's the second biggest issue that we that we run into. And that's why I spend so much time there because I mean, you took all the time, to do the research, find the product, install it. And then if you don't introduce it properly to the operators, I mean, they're gonna make it work for themselves. I mean, once you're off the floor, I mean, they will cut them off, they will, rig them however they see fit. And the biggest thing there is the misconception that because you reduce the noise, you took away their blowing force. Like that's the only reason they cut it off. And because I've asked them myself, I've asked hundreds of operators, like, why did you do this? Which is what I think is more important than yelling at them for adapting the gun, is to find out why they did it. And almost every time they say it wasn't blowing hard enough. So there, I think the education is important. And what I like to do is I actually take a scale with me when I go into a plant. And I also recommend safety managers do this if they're introducing the new gun. And what the scale, it's like this big, a small food scale that I bought off of Amazon for $10. And you literally just blow your air gun on the scale and it tells you your blowing force. So this way the operators can physically see how much blowing force their old gun is getting, and the safety manager can also have a sound meter there. So it's like, okay, it's blowing this loud and you can see the blowing force. And then when they switch out the gun, they can see they're getting more blowing force with the nozzle on than without it on. And then even though the noise difference, like it's weird because your senses aren't matching up, anymore. Like
Okay.
it's natural that all humans think loud is powerful. I mean, like thunder, and lightning, like all this stuff is loud and powerful. That it's hard to think. And everything in manufacturing right now is so loud that once try to engineer some of this stuff out and it sounds quiet, it's a little odd.
It's a
I've
very
been into
interesting point. Yeah, it's very
yeah,
cool.
I've been into there was one facility I went to recently where they're making jet engines. It was so quiet. Like I walked in and I go, we don't need hearing protection. And he said, no. And I'm like, is anybody working? Like, like it didn't sound like anything was happening because the facility was so quiet. Like it was bizarre. Like even for me, who I'm trying to get rid of the noise, to walk into a facility where it is so quiet. Um, and he's like, yeah, so we went into, they had the louder applications in separate rooms to contain the noise. So we were actually going in there to address these specific areas of the plant that were allowed. But yeah, it was a little bizarre. being in a quiet, when they were working on these massive jet engines, and there were people working and, you know, talking, but it was so quiet. Yeah, it was different. So it's possible for sure. Um, but yeah,
How you can do all this like test if you have 10 and 1,000 working places? Would you really like go to each operator to show him on a scale, or it just like you gather everyone and just like show it? I mean, like because it's very time consuming job, right?
yeah,
So what is your strategy there?
it is. So a lot of times I actually will do a webinar. So I mean, they have to be trained on other things as well, like confined spaces,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So when you're doing a general safety training, and I'm like, if you do it quarterly, yearly, add this in. I also record a lot of videos that I share with my customers, and I'm like, play it or have each area manager play the video on the computer, have their section around, you know, hey, we're installing the guns. Here's a quick video so you guys can see why we chose these. Um, and just so they can see it. Or just so you would, it depends on the area managers too. So you have to get the other people involved. So that way it could be like more one-on-one. So there's a couple ways you could do the video, send it to everybody, add it to the general safety training that they already have to do. Or if they're in hearing conservation, the operators already all have to get pulled out to do their noise test. While they're waiting for their noise test, have them watch the video on why they're doing, you know, getting new guns, to reduce noise, just to educate them in their perception. So there's a couple different ways, because yeah, walking around to every single employee, like, yeah, that's a little unrealistic. So videos help. You can even have some of the personnel on site do the test and record
Mm-hmm.
themselves, that they can say, we did it. Because of course, I'm Dani and I do this all the time. Like, I could be doing something behind the scenes, or, you know, it's like people have to see it for
Of
themselves.
course.
Like, record yourself doing the test and show it to the operators. You did all the numbers. You're not taking their blow force, you know, away from them. Um, so it's important to get the key people involved, and then they can kind of pass down the information. And show, and like I said, the scale costs $10 on Amazon. Like, just it saves so much more time in buy-in from the operators that it's absolutely worth it. I've even had
That's
people ask
amazing.
me like, hey, can you add a scale to my order? And I'm like, I don't sell scales, but
You
I
can
recommend you get one.
now open now your no new business, you know, just buy it on
I,
Amazon and just resell it together
I know.
with the
I
gun.
should. I should.
That's no, I think it's really great. I have another question. So after you installed everything, because again, you know, coming back to this question that I saw when operators cut off things when they're like not happy with the results. And I mean, sometimes it can happen. Sometimes maybe the pressure level is changing in the main line, right? And then some parameters are changing, or there is a new production line is added, and there is no flow enough that goes like to them
Hmm.
to the equipment anymore. So something can happen, something can change. They can be like unhappy, and then they remove it, or they claim, okay, we have now problems, but it's not the
Hmm.
problem with the component; it's a problem actually with the components after this. So after the
Hmm.
final use, is there is like any strategy of sustaining this best practice, or do you have clients that asking you to come back in 1 year to do some, I don't know, check it once again, or it's everything on the shoulders of the client that now after installation they are responsible for everything, or
Well,
how to
uh,
scale it up?
we do
Because
have an,
I'm asking because I saw also audits, you know, like where you give a
yeah.
wonderful report, like they start to implement something, and then I know 50% of this in 2 years are even worse because and then they didn't do anything. So what is the so
Yeah.
what is the plan there?
So we like to, of course, we do a lot of customer service also, and following up
Mm-hmm.
with customers. So it depends. Like, if they don't say anything, then we don't know. Like, because what a lot of
Yeah.
people do now is, you know, they install it and we're like, okay, is no news good news? Did it
Mm-hmm.
work? Did they move on? And then, you know,
Mm-hmm.
ghosting. thing now. So then you get ghosted and like you don't hear anything back. So it really depends, like to have that open line of communication, like, hey, because I've had people say, hey, Dani, this doesn't work. And then I'm like, okay, that's odd. The line size was right. Like you said, everything on paper was right.
Yes, of course.
But again, once you get in the facility, so we do have an engineering team and several other people here who have also been here for 20 plus years, who have also run into a lot of that. But unfortunately, we don't have, so Silvent, all we do is the point of use. We do know people and we don't partner with anybody or anything, but there are other people who specialize in redoing the compressor sizes, if there's the piping between, there's so much involved along the process, which is more your end. So like I can't go in really and recommend a new compressor. Like that's not
Of course, yes.
So I would have to direct them, which is why I'm on LinkedIn and I like meeting with so many consultants and people who do that. Because when I do run into that and I'm like, hey, I know someone in your area that can come in and help with this section. Unfortunately, like our expertise is not there. I couldn't talk to you about any of the piping, any of the compressors. I know basic information on compressors, but like I said, I know I've been able to shut a couple off by reducing the point of use end on the
definitely.
So when something comes in, I make sure that we check like, okay, all of our boxes, it should be working. And then now this is triggering, like you said, some other issue.
If they had before.
Yes, prior to this. But like I said, we wouldn't, like any other components, like regulators or filters, there's so many things involved in the compressor system.
I think no, it's like it's definitely like the engineering companies and the auditors that do this. It's definitely. I think my question was more again like like on the personal side. I mean, would they come back in 1 year or two if there's something is like goes wrong, or like do you have more customers that would ghost like after some years, or rather than you have like a long-term relationship with the customer that would say, okay, listen, like there's now something like went wrong, and now I need to. Can you suggest me some consultant or like someone who can come and check here, or maybe he needs to retrofit his air gun, this kind of things. So about the follow-up of the projects.
Yes. So I'm not saying this for any kind of boasting or anything, but I normally don't get ghosted.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I normally don't. But it's because I'm very respectful of people's time, what they're doing. And obviously I want the product to work. Like this is what we do. It's who we are, everything. And we do have a really good engineering team and engineering support as well. So most of our customers buy every year. I will say if they don't, it's because the air knives, once an air knife or an air nozzle is installed, it pretty much stays there for years.
Yes.
Like they're not going in there and changing them. So in that case, it's a follow-up, like is everything, and they're like, nope, still in the machine, we're good to go. Don't really have any other issues or concerns. So I will say it is there, and we try to just keep the door open or keep that relationship going. So if something does happen, they can come back. But it's not very often. I will say in the grand scheme of things, I mean, Silvent started in 1989. I only remember that. It's because it's when I was born. So that's the only reason I know how old Silvent is. It's probably the best year ever.
Because I was born too also, so
yeah, see, even
exactly.
1989 is a great year. So so they've been doing it for so long that it's it's good quality, it's great. I will be honest and say sometimes we can't, like some applications are a little more involved than others, and sometimes we don't have a solution for it. But they also don't either. So and that's very rare. But there are some applications that are just very intensive, very high use, that we can't unfortunately help with, but that's, I would say less than 5% overall. But yeah, as far as the follow-up, they let us know if it's not working. And then we try to do
That's the most
everything we
important
can.
part, of
Yeah,
course.
we try to do everything we can. Of course, if they're not following up, again, I can't speak for other people or any other country than the US and Canada. If they install something that doesn't work and we don't know, we can't, we can't address any issues that where they're like, oh, didn't work, throw it in the garbage, move on, find something different, and like don't reach out again. Yeah, I wouldn't know.
So what is your, I think you, from all the people actually I know in our industry, you're like the best communicator and networker because you really have values of, as you said, respecting people's time, listening to them, talk to operators. What is your now next challenge and big plans with the, you are really good in safety and I really like to post about the awareness. What is your challenge now? What is your
Oh,
next plans, like next steps? Where Dani is going with this?
so as you mentioned in the beginning, I have been more active on LinkedIn. And that's just because I am one person and me, calling people directly, it's effective, but not for the reach that I want to give. So I'm turning now to social media to get an even broader awareness to help even more people. Because I can only dial the phone so many times a day. And like you said, I can only do so many meetings per day and, talking to all of these operators, being able to record myself and, share the trainings, the safety trainings, anything like that. It's only going to help the people that I'm working with. Since I started on LinkedIn, I started back up 2 months ago, so just started. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I've already gotten plenty of feedback and emails from my customers saying, "Oh, Dani, this is great. We love that you're on there." Um, Eventually, I want to do more things like this where I can talk again to a broader audience. I will also Prior to 2020, I was a speaker at several different safety conferences, noise conferences, engineering conferences, things like that, in the US and Canada. And that's also where, I gained a lot of trust and met so many new people at those. And then 2020 came, and then I had a baby. So, he's 2 now, so I'm ready to start doing other things. And that I think that's where the social media also helps, is that I can be present a little bit more often, but then still be able to have, a life with my family, and things like that too. So it's new for me.
Yeah,
So I really like, I'm getting great feedback, trying to be creative and focus on mainly the questions that I get. Because like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years, so I'm going through my emails, like, what are people asking me all the time? What are my phone calls mainly based on? Because I'm like, if, these 100 people that I talk to directly have this issue, I'm sure there's thousands that have the same issue.
exactly.
Um,
And
not
with what questions people actually can call you? I mean, maybe not just like about the gun, but it's what are the questions? What are the emails topic that you get? I mean, for our listeners, so they can come to you with those questions. Like top
um,
3 questions for Dani.
Ooh, top 3. The first one is always OSHA,
Mm-hmm.
for the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Canada also has similar safety regulations. It's not called OSHA, but each province is a little different.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the big one. It's
Mm-hmm.
OSHA, and it's the hearing conservation program and the dead ending with the air guns. So the first one is that's always the first question, like, is it OSHA compliant? And then we can continue the conversation.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's the big one. I would say the second one more recently has been more focused on chip guarding.
Oh,
So yeah, so I know some locations are really heavy on that, and they're adding safety shields, air shields. Some are even adding curtains and like things to block the operators from each other and, you know, different debris blowing. Because the eye injuries, you know, is the second one, but it's also like the powder, like if they're blowing off a dust or anything, I mean,
Yeah,
you're breathing that in. So it's not even just eye injuries. I mean, it's
it's
respiratory also. Um, so getting something that helps redirect that dust or powder just away from them breathing it in as well. I found that's probably the second biggest thing. Um, and then I would say for third, it's kind of a tie between they just need something to work better, like it's just not working, or they have a specialized application where they need non-scratching or certain chemical resistance or, you know, a longer extension, something like that, that's a little bit more special case. Like it's not just a general use blowgun can't fix it. So it's a tie between that on the performance end and ergonomics is actually becoming more and more prevalent in my emails. I get some emails that some operators, you know, are complaining on the strain. I mean, they're pulling the blowgun. Some people are pulling it, you know, 100 to 1,000 times per day. Um, and you don't think about it because I mean, however many parts you're making, they're blowing off every single part and they're cleaning off their workstation and blowing off all those parts. So the trigger pull and the comfort in the operator's hands is kind of a big thing now. And it could be because I am getting in front of some more people that are in IH and more focused on ergonomics that is coming, I'm getting more of those questions. But it's good. I mean, it's making the operators more comfortable overall. So I would say those are definitely, I kind of squeezed four in there, but those are the top three main concerns.
I mean, we can continue until 10 or 20, but I think
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
the most
definitely.
important, the most important questions. And what is usually the people that address those questions, which role they have? It is the safety, energy, what is usually the, who is worried about it?
Uh, Most of the time it's EHS, so environmental health and safety, or the safety engineer. Rarely it's like the operations manager, but that's if he's like, hey, we have a problem here, like there's going to be eye injuries or we're going to get an OSHA fine for this, and then they reach out. Um, but for me personally, it's 90% safety. And that safety is a kind of a big umbrella. Um, so it's most of the time them, but I do have coworkers here who maybe they only talk to, you know, facilities and engineering people, so that, you know, that's kind of their focus and a lot more energy projects or just improving the processes. Um, but like I said, I ended up in the safety category, but I love it and it's people. So anything to make their job a little easier. You know, everyone's trying to, you know, live their dreams and go home, provide for their family. I'm like, nobody's trying to make our lives harder on purpose. Like, you know, they kind of have their own things to worry about. So if we can just make one section easier, check all the boxes, make sure everybody goes home, then I think that's a good deal.
That sounds great. Really sounds great. And I really love that you're so people oriented in a such an industrial engineering world, you know, like where it's most on the performance and this is such an important part. There is anything you would like to add to finish our conversation? I mean, it was not more technical, but I think we got this like, feeling of the what is important in this aspect and on the safety, and we really see that the operator is the most important guy who actually would use it, right? So while others are really worried about the compliance and certification, at the end you're trying to make the life of operator better, and the scale is really amazing part. So what is anything you would like to share with us?
Um, I will share that we can get extremely technical if people want to.
I think it's the
Um,
next one, next
yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
that could be the next one. We can get very technical, but my big thing is also we can talk about specs all day long. Like, and like you mentioned too, facilities, they're all so different. And depending on your current setup, by the time, it gets to the point of use where I am,
Mhm.
you think you're at 100 PSI and it's really not.
Yes.
So my big thing is like you have to get something in there and plug it in and try it for yourself. Like we can all research all day, look at numbers online, especially when it comes to ergonomics and noise levels.
Mhm.
Most noise levels are done in a lab. Like
Mm.
our noise levels are done in a quiet lab,
Of
like
course,
this,
yes.
and there's no machines running, there's no people talking, there's,
Yeah.
not blowing off what the jet engine that they're making, So it's something that you have to get to try, see for yourself.
Mhm.
And some people maybe that have been doing their job a little bit longer, it's plug it in and try it. I mean, take the noise readings, do the scale, see it for yourself. It makes a very big difference. And if you think you've tried everything, I can tell you you haven't, because Silvent alone has over 250 air blow guns.
Mhm.
So I'm like, there's no way you've tried, because people are like, I've tried everything. And I'm like, I don't think so. But let's try something, trying something new is better than just leaving it how it is.
Yeah.
So I guess I will end with that.
Great. Thank you so much, Dani. Thank you. It was really fun. And next time we talk more about the technical. And I think there are so many topics. We'll go through all the 250 guns.
I'll bring my engineer for that call.
Great. Thank you so much. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, No Boring Pneumatics, and also follow Dani on LinkedIn with the valuable information, because I guess you post every day and it's really a lot of effort and a lot of valuable information that we get.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.